Franklin D. Roosevelt. He was riding in an open car, not far from where I live. Just, I mean, all I did was see a glance at him. I mean, that's something to say. Franklin D. Roosevelt. How many years ago?
Wow.
Maybe I was 15 or 12 or something at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, and they used to ride in these open cars because nobody would ever shoot them or anything.
Kind of like Kennedy. And when I went to Dallas, and I went to the book observatory or whatever book depository, they show you photos of the car, and I'm like thinking like, wow, something's weird.
Something changed after that, right?
Yeah.
They had to be. Well, the Pope goes around and really protected with his.
Yeah.
I mean, things are really. I mean, over the years, things are different. And another thing that I really. So one day I was coming home from work after I retired from IBM, and I saw Gorbachev accidentally. He visited the United States at one point, and I was walking from where I worked to the Port Authority bus terminal, which you may have gone through.
Yeah.
And somehow he was coming down 7th Avenue, a big caravan, and the whole caravan stopped, and he got out of the car. Of course, I wasn't right in front, but I could see it. And everybody was yelling, Gorby, Gorby, Gorby. His name is Gorbachev.
Yeah.
This is Americans now, and we had trouble with the Soviet Union at that time. It was still a Cold War. But Gorbachev kind of came in when things were changing in the Soviet Union.
Wow.
But that was pretty interesting.
Just pure luck. You just
luck. He just stopped and got out of the car. Imagine that,
Wow.
I mean, it could be dangerous. I mean, this is a...
Yeah,
Russia, it was the Soviet Union and the United States, and
I think they'd be like an assassin or something.
People seem to there was something about him that the Americans seemed to like somewhat. Yeah.
But in that time, was IBM? It wasn't in White Plains? It
had nothing to do with IBM. After I retired.
Oh, after you retired,
I was working for a CPA firm as was an independent guy. In fact, Lee also was working for the same firm, but she wasn't. I don't know where she was that particular day. So I was working myself in Manhattan from this office, 54th Street, to the bus terminal, which was 38th.
Wow!
I couldn't have crossed the street because there was that caravan and people on both sides. And it really was. It was something to see. You don't see that too often. That the head of the Soviet Union, right? I
know, and especially because it's such a tense relationship.
Yeah, and people, and I couldn't believe it. The Americans was yelling, Gorby, Gorby. It was not. It was like saying Corey. I mean, they're not saying bad things.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
So it really was interesting.
Oh, but do you know how your dad learned the jewelry trade? He just learned, or some. It was like an apprentice.
I don't know how he got it. I really don't. I don't know how he got it.
Yeah.
But also during the World War II, he had a factory. Really, he and another man, and they would polish. They had their own machines and all that. They'd polish rings and do that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So I don't know how he learned. To answer your question, I have no idea. There's so many questions I would have liked to ask my parents, but I never. When they died, I just wasn't smart enough to ask.
Yeah.
All those. I would have liked to know how they grew up. Just what you're saying.
Yeah.
Would have been of interest to me. It's of interest to me today, but at that time, I never even thought about it. So.
Yeah, well, because just so much to learn from everyone, experiences.
Well, it's nice to know. I mean, nice to know about them, how their parents were.
Yeah.
My parents were a little unusual because I know a lot of people were parents. My parents were both born in this country. They both born in 1890s.
Oh wow!
My father 1895, my mother 1896. But a lot of friends I have and all that in those days were born in Russia, Poland, different countries, and they came over.
Oh, so they weren't. But did their parents come through Ellis Island or something like that?
Their parents came through Ellis Island, but my parents were born in this country.
Yeah.
So my mother was born in Philadelphia, my father in Lower Manhattan.
Huh.
So.
Well, what were their names? I don't.
Well, Harry Rubenfeld and Edith Rubenfeld were their names, and then I changed my name later on. which I'm not too proud about telling people because it seems kind of silly. But
Yeah.
I remember Beth's father was the one. His name was Saul. He really convinced me to change it. He says it would help you in business and all that, because there was a lot of anti-Semitism.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when I started at IBM, I don't know whether I could have gotten a job with it if it was a Jewish name at that time when I started. Now,
Wow.
maybe I'm wrong, but there was anti-Semitism. In fact, when I got into the firm, there was some guy I found out was Jewish, and I asked him I said, "Are there any other Jewish?" So imagine that I'd asked that question. Are there any other Jewish people around in IBM?
But this was when in the
1957.
Okay.
So that sounds like going back a long time,
Yeah.
right? Was it 57 years ago? 50, right?
Yeah.
That was 1957. It's exactly 57 years ago.
Yeah. And what did he say? He didn't know?
And what?
Did he know if there were other Jewish people?
Well, he said there were, because I worked in an office. He says, yeah, there were others, not too many.
Mm-hmm.
But then IBM at one point, they really didn't hire they didn't hire Jewish people, period. Because the father, whose name was Watson, who started the firm,
Mm-hmm.
he was really kind of anti-Semitic, and he was kind of friendly with Hitler too, from what the story goes.
Uh-huh.
But at any rate,
Well, same with like Henry Ford, right?
Henry Ford also was
Yeah.
right. But anyway, what happened is I think they realized that if the company wanted to grow, they better pick up Jewish guys who have pretty
Very smart.
Some of those Jewish people are pretty smart.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm prejudiced because I'm Jewish, but
Well, I mean, it's not a coincidence. I mean, look at like Manhattan Project or Nobel Prizes in physics or math.
absolutely,
I mean, it's not
you're right.
It's not a fluke.
You read about the Nobel Prizes and other prizes, right? That the Jewish people. I mean, they're really.
Yeah, you could say 2 and 3 or 3 and 4 would be negligible, but it's not even close.
According to the number of Jewish people there are, but
it's not even close. Yeah.
So there's something going on. But
Wow, that's real interesting.